Does the decision to go overseas for this preseason or the decision to play teams of really high caliber surprise you? Are you pro that decision? Like, where do you fall on this one? Which team is doing it right? If you had to care about preseason, I'm gonna force that on you. You temporarily care about preseason, and we're gonna start with Gavin, who's the most preseason agnostic.
I think personally, I would want the players to stay home. I would want them to stay home. Now, there is, I think, there's reasoning behind it. Obviously, I think the data and the justification is getting the players out of their normal environment to get them into a little bit more of an uncomfortable environment. Also, getting them out of their routine, away from their families or distractions, and just getting them focused on the getting fit, uh, and being in a club controlled environment to where the club can kind of control what they eat, what they do for the most part. Obviously, players can go out and have fun wherever they're doing their little tour. But for the most part, what they eat, when they sleep, all that sort of fun stuff. Uh, when they go away to an exotic location. Personally, I would keep them home, but I get the justification of wanting them to focus mainly on the training and on the instructions given for the tactics.
All right, that's fair. Bryce, I'll throw it over to you. We're kind of going in reverse order ish on this one. What are your thoughts on it?
The club that took the points record in 2024 went on a world tour before the season started, so that might be the best strategy of them all. Just kidding, but
You had me. I didn't think you were kidding.
yeah, I thought I was deceiving enough there, but um, I really don't know the data behind it, so I can't really give a clear answer. I there's each club does something that feels like every year differently. Sometimes they stay at home, and sometimes if you have a new manager, you might want to stay at home because you want everybody to get accustomed to the area because you want the coaching staff to get comfortable with their training grounds and their locations. Sometimes you have teams playing in multiple competitions in multiple countries, so maybe you do want to go abroad and uh, get the team comfortable in that environment. So I know there's data behind it. I know they try to mix it up annually. So I guess I'm cool with a mixture. Cool going out a bit. Cool staying in. I don't know how it affects getting like transfers integrated in the team when they have to go through the medical, if they have to go to their training facility if the team isn't there, and then they have to meet back up with them wherever their location is. So could throw um, that could throw a curveball in there, but I'm cool with a mixture. I don't really feel one way or another. I guess whatever fits the plan for 2025 is what it goes with. But I see what Gavin says. I don't mind the travel side of it as well. I think it could be good for a group to connect or prepare for a competition like a CONCACAF Champions Cup or whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. It's a very good point. Now you've got me rethinking the answer that I want to give. So while I sit here treading water, I'm gonna toss it over to Bo. Bo, what are your thoughts on it?
I am 100% send them off, man. I think that sending them off is huge. I think that it's very easy, especially in when you're kind of home or just in your day to day lives, to kind of just get caught up in this grind and stuff. For people that are married or been in relationship stuff, it's very easy to get in roommate mode with your spouse. Kind of thing, it's very easy to just kind of fall into the trap of same thing. Where if you remove the where basically, hey, we're going to make everyone uncomfortable. It's going to be a little culture shock and this and that. It forces bonding. You are forcing people to get together. And yeah, look, like Miami World Tour, probably not the smartest thing unless you're the owner and you salt the check afterwards. Then, yeah, I'd send them off too. But no, in reality, like I think like the teams over in Spain, Philly, Vancouver, FC Dallas, really big proponent of that, where it's like, hey, you guys live together, eat together, sleep together because we're a team. And, just getting a bunch of big egos and personalities like that to want to set aside uh, their own taste for glory for the sake of the team. I think that you can only really get that by really forcing them together. I mean, it's either going to burn really quickly like it did with San Jose last year, or it's gonna work with. I want to say Miami, but the news today out of Miami shows that that's kind of burning too.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I never before have I edited my notes so abruptly when I have my bullet points here of things to talk about before the show. And I'm just like, oh, Raul Sanyehi is, reassigned. All right, let's toss that in there. That's breaking news. So and we'll cover that more later because everyone loves some good preseason drama.
I do just want to say, and I don't feel like anybody did, but kudos to Russell on the pronunciation of all the teams earlier. Like Puskas Academia, like man, you nailed that stuff, and that's not an easy job. So kudos on that.
I appreciate that. I go onto those Wikipedia articles and I look up the that little like fun pronunciation of how all the letters work. So try my best. If nothing else, it gives me an excuse to keep looking up more soccer things. So hey, it works. But I'm gonna say that I'm kind of a cross between Bo and Bryce on this one. Now I feel like I'm the guy, the man in the middle. I think if you are a team playing in Champions Cup, 100%, send those guys out there because you're going to have to send your players out for Champions Cup anyways. And if you're taking it seriously, get your guys used to traveling around, get them used to being in unfamiliar environments and having only each other to count on. And I think that's a great way to prepare them mentally for the early stages of Champions Cup because we see teams crash out of Champions Cup pretty early on a regular basis for MLS. I mean, invariably you get one or two that go the distance, but only Seattle has won Champions Cup. I mean, it's not easy to do that. So if you can stimulate guys and make them feel like they're part of that environment early and get them ready for it, go for it. On the other hand, I think if you're not in Champions Cup and if you're in, just league competition and maybe you're in US Open Cup, then I don't know, send them maybe like around the US or send them to like Florida or Texas or something. Someplace warm, especially if they're a northern based team. But I I don't think there's as much of a justification to really push guys for all these strange, environments. Like focus on just the league competition coming up. You don't need to challenge them too much because I mean, clearly it didn't work last season. So focus on the basics before you go striving for, the above and beyond.
Yeah, I want to say like Bo's points about like just packing up and travel, like that is a good point of, I feel like just I can sometimes say sometimes it's very easy to get comfortable in your environment. So like especially, you just had an off season and to get that tick going, it definitely makes sense to kickstart the season. So even like what you said, Russell, even if it's not out of the country, just maybe just a new environment, go somewhere warm where you can actually play outside instead of on an indoor facility. So um, yeah, I liked everyone's spin on that.
Yeah. Go to the Disney Wide World of Sports at ESPN in Florida, let
M-
players,
MLS is
let
back.
yeah, MLS is back. I think I said this on the last episode, but they titled it as MLS is back weekend for that first week, and that feels like a very bittersweet naming convention because I'm like we had it, so good for the MLS is back tournament. Now we don't have that, but you're reminding us of it. Ah, well, guys, that's kind of my spiel on preseason. I think the only other question that I have for you is, I guess, does your opinion change if a team is in Champions Cup? Because Champions Cup kicks off very early. I mean, I think these first matches for Champions Cup, I want to say are like February 16th, about and around. I mean, we're maybe 2.5 weeks out from Champions Cup at this point for some of these teams. Like with the majority of teams, okay, I get everyone's position. Does it change for the teams in Champions Cup who have those matches coming up? And I guess you can exclude the teams that have a bye through the first round.
I think I think the only difference is those teams should take it a little more seriously, and that the players should be playing a little bit harder in those matches, essentially, and really trying to practice the movements and really trying to play at full game speed to get up to fitness levels as soon as possible. Because we all know how much teams struggle, how much players struggle in the early stages of CONCACAF Champions Cup to just be fit enough to go a full 90 at a high level. And so to me, for me, it's like, yeah, they should take it a little bit more seriously, and they should really be trying to get fit as soon as possible. The whole squad, because the whole squad is needed in those opening, 8 to 10 weeks that a team is in MLS and Champions Cup, and all the flights and all the travel and stuff like that. So it's not just like the starting 11 either; it's the whole squad.
The first MLS matchup in the Cup is Sporting Kansas City hosting Miami, and it's just crazy to think about like their two off seasons, because you have Miami who lost their head coach but already pivoted, and now they're basically bringing in a whole like refresh of South American talent into their roster. Now you have Sporting Kansas City who has the same coach but has replaced or gotten rid of a few of their key guys from their mid 2010s success that kind of aged out. And it's crazy to think 3 weeks from tomorrow MLS is back. I saying the slogan again, but in the Champions Cup, it's just crazy talking about their preseasons when the the window hasn't even opened yet for registration. So the 22 days they're playing a match. It's just a quick off season, even though I know the season starts that weekend. So it's only a few days before when MLS teams really kick it off. But yeah, it's a quick turnaround, and I think it just makes, if you have a lot of change, but you're in a competition immediately like that, it just makes the intensity have to be that much higher.
I feel like this question's probably already been answered. Like you mentioned, does being in Champions Cup change things? I think it does. I think Seattle answered this for us. Jackson Reagan was selected for the January camp, and Seattle told him, no, like we need you here. We have the Club World Cup and stuff coming up. Like we have a big, run of games coming in. We need you here. And I know that, Reagan was, I mean, justifiably, there's a World Cup, in this country next year, and this was a chance for him to impress. So he was vocal, in the interview about being disappointed, but at the same time, I think you have to understand that like Seattle's, I mean, just based on their moves this season too, bringing in Paul Arriola, Jesus Ferreira, I think that they're going for everything this year, and I think that they are very serious about winning. And I feel like denying, really, one of your maybe your key defender on a team that has very high aspirations this year. I feel like that right there shows us that, yeah, if you are in Champions Cup and Club World Cup and everything else, yeah, you really do take it seriously, and these things really do matter.